We begin a new Perek today, Perek Hadar, which begins the halachas of Erev Chatzeres, which is based on the takana of Shlomo Melech, that when you have many batim that are opened into one chatzer, so because the batim are owned privately and the chatzer is shared by many people, so it looks similar to carrying from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. So therefore, Chacham was Mesaken, or Shlomo Melech was Mesaken, not to carry from a house to a chatzer, a shared chatzer. However, if you make an Erev Chatzeros, where everybody participates together and puts food in one house, then you can carry from the house into the chatzer, from any of the houses into the chatzer. As we'll see here in the Mishnah and in the continuation of the Gemara, that there's another two ways how to get around the issue of not being allowed to carry from a house to a chatzer. Besides Erev Chatzeres, there's something else called Bittul Rishus. If there's someone that's not going to be able to participate in the Erev, he could renounce the ownership that he has in the chatzer, give it up. He's not going to use anything. He's giving up, he's renouncing his ownership. It's the second option. And then there's a third option for a guy, which Erev does not apply to him. Bittul Rishus doesn't apply to him. As we'll see, the Gemara will explain why. And for him, the only way to be able to carry, if there's a guy living there, is if the Yid is going to rent the guy's space or the guy's rights of use in the chatzer. Schiras Rishus, you have to rent that ownership from him. So let's begin the Mishnah and we'll see all the details. Hadar ma'akum b'chatzer, a Yid is living together with a guy in a courtyard. Or you're living in a chatzer with someone that does not agree to the whole takana of Erev. As Rashi says, this refers to a kuti. The kuti, they were people that came to Eretz Yisrael in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash. They were Megayer. There's a whole argument in many places in Shas regarding the kutim, if they were Gerei Emes, if their conversion was real, or Gerei Arayis, they were afraid because of lions that were killing amongst them, and their Geris was not accepted. So when the Mishnah says, Misha Eina Meide Be'erov, even if they're considered to be Yidden, but they're not Meide Be'erov, so they can't participate in the mitzvah of in the takana of Erev. So whether it's a guy, whether it's this kuti, Hareza Oiser Olav. The fact that this guy is there is going to answer on you to be metaltal from your house to the chatzer. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says, La'olam eina oisa at sheyu shnei Yisraelim oisrim zeh al zeh. The only time there's going to be an issue if there's a guy living there in the chatzer is if there's two Yidden that are living there. If it's only one Yid and one guy, then it's not an issue. Only if two Yidden and a guy, then the guy answers on the Yidden that are there if he cannot participate with their Erev. The Gemara will explain the reason of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Rabbi Gamliel said, Maise b'tzadoiki yachad. There was a story with a tzadoiki, which of course is a Yid, but tzadaikim were people that did not agree to Torah Shebal Peh. They didn't agree to any of the takanas of Chazal. Shahaya dari mana b'mavoy b'Yerushalayim. He was living with us in a mavoy in Yerushalayim, and before Shabbos, he renounced his rishus in the chatzer or in the mavoy, as Rashi says, "Ubitol lanu rishusay." He was mevatel his rishus. He gave up to us the use of the chatzer. So now the fact that he did not participate with native is not a problem. He was mevatel his rishus. But for Omar lanu Abba, our father told us, "Miaru v'hitziu es hakelim lemavoy." After Shabbos came in, he said, "Quickly go and take out your kelim. Let's take out our belongings into the mavoy." So that this tzadiki should not retract his bittul rishos and bring out his kalim. If he's going to bring out his kalim into the mavoy, so then he's showing that he's retracting the fact that he was mevatel, that he said he's not going to use this rishos anymore. So let's bring out our kalim so there won't be space for any of his, so the bittul rishos that he established before should remain. So according to this version of what happened, so we see that the tzadiki could be mevatel his rishos, and we have to make sure that he won't retract it. Rabbi Yehuda said, "B'lashon acher." No, it happened differently. What his father actually said is, he said in the name of his father, "Miaru va'asu tzarcheichem b'mavoy." Go and quickly before Shabbos and get everything done that you have to do outside in the mavoy. because otherwise this tzedeki could come and bring his kalim out into the chutzner, and then he's going to retract his bittul rishos, and you won't be able to carry on Shabbos. So make sure that you take care of all your matters before Shabbos. So Rabbi Yehuda holds that we can't rely on the bittul rishos of the tzedeki. You could always retract it if he later comes and brings his kalim into the chutzner, so then his bittul rishos is worthless. He's using it, he's showing that he still wants to have his use in the chutzner. It's interesting over here, there's a big machlokes rishonim regarding, I mentioned earlier that there's schiras rishos. You could rent the rishos from someone that's not participating with your chutzner. That's usually what's done by a guy. So why can't the same be done over here with this tzedeki? Let them just rent the space from him, and then he can't renounce, he can't be mevatel that. Once he rented it to the Yidden, even if he brings his kalim out, he already rented it to them. Why don't we do that? So this is a big machlokes rishonim that's brought over here between the Rosh and the Marami Rottenberg, whether schiras rishos is something that works only by a guy or works even for a Yid. Big discussion in the rishonim. Just want to make mention of it. Let's see the Gemara. Yosef Abaye bar Ovin, Rav Chinana bar Ovin, Yosef Abaye Gabayo. So the two brothers were sitting, and Abaye sat with them. Yosvi v'ka'amri, and they sat, and they said as follows regarding the machlokes of Rab Meir and Rab Eliezer bar Yaakov in our Mishnah. It actually doesn't say the name Rab Meir in our Mishnah, but it's a Tanna Kama and Stam Mishnah Rab Meir. So they were discussing the argument in our Mishnah regarding when a guy is in your chutzner, will the guy aser on the other people in the chutzner if there's just even only one yid living in that chutzner with the guy, or like Rab Eliezer bar Yaakov said, only if there's two yid living there. So the question they asked was, Bishleim Rab Meir, it's well understood according to Rab Meir, Kasavar, Diras Akom, Diras Evit Kechavim, Shma Dira. The fact that a guy is living there is significant, and he has a reshus in the chutzner, and therefore he asers on the yid that did not make an eidov or can't make an eidov together with the guy. V'loish nachat, v'loish natrei. Makes no difference if there's one yid living with the guy, two yid living with the guy. But according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, what is the basis of his opinion? If he holds that the guy's dwelling, living there, is significant and he interferes with the yid being able to carry there, so then even if there's only one yid living with the guy, it should also be a problem. So if on the other hand, we're going to say he holds that the guy living there does not pose any problem, his dwelling is not significant regarding the requirement of an Eidov, so then so why if there are two Yidden living with the guy, does Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov say there is a problem? So when Abaye heard their question, Abaye said to them, V'savar Rab Meir, diras akom shma dira? Does Rab Meir hold that a guy living in a chutzner where there's Yidden there, that his dwelling is as the same as a Yid, it's as significant as a Yid regarding the halacha of Eidov? But Vatanya, we learned in the Braisa, Chatzeira yishal oivit kechavim, the chutzner of a guy, if there's a guy living in a chutzner, harehu kedir shel behema. The dwelling of the guy is like a barn of animals. The animals do not create any isser for anybody living in this chutzner. The same is also with the dwelling of a guy living there. This is a Braisa that's even according to Rav Meir. The Gemara later on Amud Beis will explain exactly when this Braisa applies. And that is when the guy is not there, the guy is not present. But the point is, we see over here that even according to Rab Meir, the dira of a guy is not the same as the dira of a yid when it comes to the halacha of Eiruvin. Really, his dira should not interfere at all. Ella, rather, the kula alme diris akem loishma dira. Everybody agrees that really minatayre, or really originally, the dira of a guy is not something that interferes the Eirov that has to be made in the chutzner. Even if he does not participate, it's not a problem. Here there's a special gzeira of Chazal, and that is Shema Yilmad Mimaisov Kamifligi. This gzeira that Chazal did not want Yidden to live together with a guy in a chutzner, so that they should not come to learn from his ways. Here's the machlokes when that gzeira applies. The Gemara will now explain why even though the dira of the guy should not at all interfere the Eirov, but Chazal wanted it to be an interference, and they made a specific takana to make it difficult for a Yid to live with the guy. They don't want a Yid to live together with the guy to learn from his actions. So here's the machlokes between Rab Meir and Rab Eliezer ben Yaakov when exactly this gzeira applies. Eliezer ben Yaakov Savar, Eliezer ben Yaakov holds, Kiven Daivik Echavim, Choshed HaShvichas Damim, because a guy is suspected of Shvichas Damim, that he might come to kill you. So today, the Shchichi, the Dairi, two Yidden to live together with a guy, that's common. Gazribuhu. That's where the Gzeir of Chazal applies. Chad, the Shchiach, le Gazri Be'Rabbanan. One Yid should move into the same Chatzah together with a guy, that's not so common, because the Yid is afraid to live just with a guy that's a Sheifich Damim. So Chachamim's Gzeira never applies to a case that's not Shchiach, that's not common. So therefore, only if there's two Yidden living with a guy does the Gzeira apply, not if there's one Yid living there. Meir Savar, a Meir however holds, Zimnin the Mikri V'Dayer. Sometimes it does happen that a Yid lives together with a guy, just one Yid, one guy, he has nowhere else to live, and he moved in together with that guy in a Chatzah. So therefore the Gzeir of Chazal does apply. Now, what exactly did Chazal implement in order to motivate the Yid not to live with this guy? So the Gemara now explains, and this is according to everybody. What the Rabbanan said is as follows. Ein Eiruv moel b'makam makim. An Eiruv is not going to work when a guy is there. Vein bittul reshus moel b'makam makim. And the bittul reshus should not work for a guy either. Achiyasker. Only if you're going to rent from the guy his part in the chutzner, then you could carry there. And the guy will not want to rent you his space, and therefore it's going to be a trouble. You're not going to be able to carry. So that will be a motivation for the Yid to move away. That's what Chachamim were masakin. That the guy should interfere. You have to rent his reshus in order to be able to carry there on Shabbos. And the guy won't want him. So the Gemara now explains, why would the guy not want him? My timer. Why would the guy not want to rent from you? Is the reason because the guy is afraid I'm renting him this space in the property, this space in the chutzner, the Yid might come and hold on to it and keep it. I don't want to give it away even temporarily to a Yid. So the Gemara says, why would the guy be concerned of this? Let's take a look exactly to what extent this schirus goes. When you have to rent the space from the guy, how far does this go? So there's an argument about this. According to the opinion that says that you have to have a proper renting, so then, the guy will be concerned that you're going to rent it and take it away from him. But according to another opinion that says that the schirus, the renting of the guy for this purpose, is a much weaker thing. It's sort of symbolic. It doesn't have to mamish be a proper rental. What would we say? Why should the guy not want to rent it to the Yid? It's not going to be any trouble for the guy to rent it to the Yid, so this won't be any motivation for the Yid to move out. Won't be any tircha involved in this. There's actually a discussion in Rishonim regarding whether this has to be done every single Shabbos. If you're looking at Rashi, the Kula Alma, Rashi there says, B'chol Shabbos for Shabbos. You're going to have to rent from the guy every single Shabbos again. But others say, no, it could be done like Eid of Tchumen or Eid of Chatzedis once a year. It doesn't have to be every single Shabbos. Either way, if it's something which is not a real schirus, it's a schirus ru'ah, it's a weaker schirus, I think the Gemara will explain right now. So why would the guy be concerned and not want to rent it out to the Yid? So the Gemara now brings up the source of this argument. The Itmar, we learned about this argument as follows. Rav Chisda Amar schirus bria. Rav Chisda says the rental of the guy has to be proper and full. But Rav Sheshes Amar schirus ru'ah. Rav Sheshes says even just a weaker, more symbolic kind of a rental of the guy is fine. My ru'ah, my bria, what exactly is the distinction between these two types of rentals? If you're going to say bria, proper rental means bepruta, that you're paying a pruta to the guy. Ru'ah bepachas mishava pruta. A ru'ah means that you're paying less than a shava pruta for the rental. So that can be the difference. Why not? Is there anybody that would hold that if you rent something from a guy, you buy something from a guy, that it won't work with less than a shava pruta? The whole shear of a shava pruta is only by a yid, not by a guy. Because v'ashalach Rav Yitzchak Rav Yaakov Baguri Mishmei Rav Yechanan Havu Yidin, you should know sheseichanan min ha'akom afilu b'pachas mishava pruta. You could rent from a guy with even less than a shava pruta. So by a guy, even less than a shava pruta is kaina. A guy, one of the Shava Mitzvahs B'nai Noach is Gzeila. A guy that steals and it's Eivan Shava Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, the Einish by a guy is Misa, so even if it's less than a Shava Pruta, there's a Narak, he's Chayav Misa. This is not something that you could return. It's less than a Shava Pruta, it's not Shayach HaShava by a Yid, if it's a Shavas Aveda, a Shava of Gzeila, there is the amount of a shava pruta. By a guy, it's less than a shava pruta. You can't return it. There's nothing to return. But he's narak. He can't pay, and he's even less than a shava pruta is gzeila. So you see that by a guy, less than a shava pruta is the same as a shava pruta. So that can't be the difference here between the two levels of rentals, whether it's a proper rental or a weaker rental. Elo, the difference, the machlokes between Rav Chisda and Rav Sheshes is Bria b'muharki v'burgani. Bria means that you're renting it properly and you're getting the rights to bring out your benches, your chairs, your tables, whatever you have, into the chatzar. Ru'ua b'loy marki v'burgani. Ru'ua means it's more of a symbolic rental. You're paying something for it, but you don't really have the rights to bring out your tables and chairs over there. So now, the Gemara goes back again to the question. If it's a proper rental and you bring out your tables and chairs there, the guy gets concerned that the Yid is taking over his property. He won't want to rent it to him. So therefore, the Yid's going to be stuck. He won't be able to carry there on Shabbos. That's the Gzeir of Chazal, and in order to motivate the Yid to move out, not to live together with a guy. But if all you need is more of a symbolic kind of a rental, so then what's the issue? Why would the guy not want to accept some money just for the symbolic rental and allow the Yid to carry it there, and then the Yid will have no motivation to move out? That's the Gemara. The guy is still afraid of some kind of a kishav. He's afraid that, what is this Yid coming to me to rent and he wants to pay me? Yeah, it's just a symbolic thing. I'll give it to him for a gift. He's not even interested in the money, but he dafka wants to pay me. This is the way Rabbeinu Yonason over here explains. He doesn't understand what's going on. Something's fishy over here that he's giving me money, especially according to Rashi, that he comes back to him every single week again. So what is this all about? And therefore he won't want to rent it out to the Yid. And this is the takon of Chazal, that a Yid should be able to should come to move out and not live together with the guy. So this explains the machlokes between Rab Meir and Rab Eliezer ben Yaakov regarding whether the guy asks if even only one guy is there or two guys. Let's go back to this brayso that we quoted before. The courtyard of a guy, if there's only a guy living there. It's only a guy, and houses of Goyim and a Chatzar, no Yidden there. It's like a barn of an animal. The animals do not aser on anybody in the Chatzar. If Yid wants to walk in there and bring something out from the house into a Chatzar on Shabbos, there's no problem. The guy does not aser in the Chatzar. There's only Goyim there. Or from the Chatzar to the house to the Chatzar. If there's one Yid living there, then he aser. The fact that a Yid is also living there, and there's also Goyim, so the guy will aser, as it said in the Mishnah. Divrei Rab Meir, Rab Eliezer ben Yaakov, there has to be two Yisraelim there in order to aser, as we've already explained this machlokes. Amar, what did it say here in the brayso? Chatzeirei shel akom harehu kedir shel behema. That the chatzar of a guy is like the barn of animal, right? And therefore, a Yid could come in and out. And what did it say afterwards in the brayso? That if a Yid is living there, so then the guy asks for a Yid is not allowed to carry out from his house into the chatzar, right? But it's mashma from the brayso, as Rashi here explains, it's mashma from the brayso, that the Isser would only be that if the Yid is living there in the chatzar together with the guy, so now the Yid will not be allowed to carry out from the guy's house. But a Yid from his own house will be allowed to carry out. That's what it's mashma from this brayso. Frek the Gemara on that, but in the Mishnah we learned, if a guy is living in your chatzar, so then the guy asks on the Yid to carry out from the Yid's house. Again, the brayso it's mashma that if there's a guy living there alone, there's no issue whatsoever. If a Yid also lives there, so then you can't carry out from the guy's house. But the Yid could still carry out from his house into the chatzar. But in our Mishnah, it's mashma, if a guy is living in your chatzar, then there's an issue that the Yid can't carry out from his house. So what's the story with a guy living in your chatzar? So the Gemara explains, Lakashya, it's not a question. Ha de isei, ha de lesei. In our Mishnah, we're talking about a guy that's living in your chatzar, and he's there, he's present there now. So therefore, he asks on the Yid to carry out from his house as well. And as we've explained before, it's the takon of Chazal that we don't want the Yid to live with the guy. Ha de lesei. In this brayso, it's talking about a guy that owns a house there, but he's not there now. He left. Frag the Gemara, so let's analyze this further. Umay kasava, what does the Tana of this Braisa hold? If he holds, just generally we say that when there's a dira in a certain courtyard, and the owner is not present, but nevertheless, because he owns a house there, it's an ownership that will have to participate in the Eruv. Even if a person is leaving out of town for Shabbos, but he also has to participate in the Eruv because he has a house there. So then Afila Akim Nami Nitzar, we should apply the same thing by a guy as well. Even if the guy is not present, but if he owns a house there in this chutzner and he asks us, he should ask on everybody else. Or if he holds that we always say that if the person that has a house in this chutzner is not living there now, he's not present there now, so then that dira is not counted. We don't care about that person. He's not here now. So then Afil Yisrael Nami Lo Nitzar. So then this applies even to a yid, not only to a guy. Why is the Braisa saying this halacha only by a guy, that it's like a barn of a behemoth? That would be true even by a yid. That's the Gemara. No, there's a difference. Really, Mekaradin, the halacha should be that if a person owns a house in a chotzer and he's not living there now, so then it's not a problem. You don't have to count him in with the Eruv. However, Yisrael, if he is here, so he asks on everybody. Even when he's not here, Gozru Berabanan. The Rabbanan were geyser that he should also aser, that his house is considered to be a dira in this chatzar, even if he's not present there right now. But Akom, when it comes to a guy, even if the guy is present and he's here in his house in the chatzar, so really we don't even require an eruv for the guy. Rather, the whole thing, as we explained, was the whole idea of the eruv by the guy, or actually not an eruv, we require the yid to rent from him his part of the chatzar, is all just to get the yid to move away from the guy. So you shouldn't learn from him. So the whole thing is exeda. Ki isei asar, only if the guy is actually present, so then he asers on the yid as well. The exeda applies, but ki lesei lo yasar. But if the guy is not here, so then we don't answer. The guy is not here, so we're not concerned that you're going to learn from his actions, and therefore, if he's not here right now, the Gzeira doesn't apply. Frag the Gemara, is this true? If a guy owns a house in your chutzner, and right now he's not here, he left for Shabbos, so then he doesn't answer on you, you're not going to have to rent it from him. But Vatanan, we learned in the Mishnah, this was quoted before actually. A person leaves his house before Shabbos and is going to be for Shabbos in another city. Whether it's a guy that was living in the chutzner that left for Shabbos, or it's a yid that left. Even if he's not present, he still asks on everybody else if he did not participate with the Eruv Chatzeres. So what do we see over here? Even if the guy left, he still creates an Isser for everyone else. As the Gemara, Hasam, the Asi B'Yoymei. Over there, it's talking about a situation where the guy went to another city that's close by, and he can come during the day. So as soon as he arrives, he's going to make an Issa on everybody else. If you're going to let everyone carry until the guy comes, they might come to carry later as well. So therefore, over there, even if the guy is not present, you're not allowed to carry, because he could easily come back. Amar Rav Yudah Mashmuel, Rav Yudah said in the name of Shmuel, Allah Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov. We paskin like Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov. Rav Huna says, no, it's not a psak halacha mamish, rather minig. The minig is that we follow Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov. So if someone asks you, you can tell them that this is the minig. So he said only minig Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov. Rav Yechanan says, Nagu Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov. It's not a psak halacha, and if someone asks you privately, you don't paskin for him this either. But Nagu, this is what people do. And people do this way, and we leave them, we let them be makel like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, that only if there's two yidden together with a guy, then there's an issue with the guy, but if it's one yid together with a guy, then it's not an issue. Amalei Abai le Rav Yosef Abai says to Rav Yosef about Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Kaimilon, we know that Mishnah's Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the halachas of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, kav v'noki. It's a kav, it's a certain small measurement, v'noki. But those few places where he says his opinion, his halachas, they're very pure, clean, very good halachas, and we paskin like him basically. Rav Yudah Mashmuel, so Rav Yudah Mashmuel said about this, halacha Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov, something like this, that the halacha is like Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov. Ma'olai rui b'makim rabbi. So we know you're not allowed to paskin any halachas in front of your teacher. There's a isser of being meira halacha b'fnei Rabbi. This is what happened according to one of the opinions, by Nadav and Avihu. They passed in the halacha before Moshe Rabbeinu. As we'll see here, the hemshech of the Gemara, this whole hemshech of the sugi here for the next blot or so, is going to be about this subject of being meira halacha b'fnei Rabbi. So you're not allowed to pass in b'fnei Rabbi. But how about something so simple that we just said that there's a rule that the halacha is always like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov? Is that something that you could say in front of your Rebbe because it's something that it's anyways accepted and known? So again, are you allowed to say this in front of your Rebbe? Amalei. So he answered him and said, no, even something as simple as like asking whether you could have an egg with a milk product, which is simple that it should be allowed, you're also not allowed to say in front of your teacher. You're not allowed to pass in any halacha in front of your teacher, even though it's a davar apashat. They would ask it, so this is a continuation, sorry. Where you read this is, this is a simple question that was asked from Rav Chisda. Kolshani, all his lifetime, the Rav Huna, his teacher Rav Huna, and he didn't want to answer. He didn't want to answer because it's in front of his Rebbe, even though it's a simple thing. Rav Yaakov asked Abaye something else. How about Megillas Tainis, the Ksiva Umancha? If you have Megillas Tainis, where there's halachas that are written in Megillas Tainis, Rashi says that this was the only thing that they had written in those times, before the Mishnayos was written, so therefore it's asking about this. So you have Megillas Tainis, and it's written, and it's right over there, and everyone could take a look and see what it says there. Are you allowed to paskin what it says in it in the place of your Rebbe? So again he answered him, that is. Okay. So even something as simple as Beis Bekutche, as we just said, all lifetime of Rav Chisda, he did not, all the lifetime of Rav Huna, that is, he did not ask the question, he didn't answer this question in his presence, even though it was something so simple. Because you're not allowed to be meira halacha b'fnei Rabbi. As we'll see in Mitzvah Shem, the hemshech of this subject, as I said, the Gemara is going to discuss this barichas. Okay.